Thank you for joining Wars of the Roses, as we continue with part 3 of the authentic and complete history of the ancient and mystical order Rosae Crucis, compiled by H. Spencer Lewis, F.R.C., Grand Master General and Imperator of the Order in the United States. The following is taken from the American Rosae Crucis, a magazine of life's mysteries, January 1916, Volume 1, Number 1. The Growth of the Order. At the close of the first epoch of the Order's history, ending with the transition of Amenhotep IV, or Akhenaten, in 1350 BC, there was but one lodge, that which meet in the temple at El-Amarna, and the brothers and sisters numbered 410, which included the offices of the lodge and the members of the Supreme High Council. Plans had been made for years for the establishment of other lodges in various countries, but in those where a lodge could have been established by one of the Egyptians who would have traveled there, war was raging and conditions were against any such institution. Greeks were coming to Egypt to study its philosophies and become acquainted with its learning. Many of them sought entrance into the order, but it appears from various council decisions that they were not admitted because of unpreparedness. Benedictus Vigulus, a brother of the order, who made a very exhaustive study of the growth of the order, wrote, about the year 1680 A.M., the Greeks went to Chaldea and Egypt to learn this philosophy, but after learning a little, they became so puffed up and proud, depending more than was meant on their own understanding. This seems to have been the result most feared by the council there, just as it is today. So many are ready to grasp at the first principles and then, thinking their minds capable of building a philosophical structure upon the foundation, cease to be students and at once become teachers, each having a distinct, incomplete, and erroneous philosophy or ism. Naturally, there will be heretics in every school of thought, but an heretic is one who diverges from the established teachings only because of a thought knowledge of such teachings, and to such we may turn for helpful criticism and suggestions at times. But we must be delivered from the bigoted student who rises above his fellows and places his superior mind and judgment above the experienced understanding of his teachers. For many years the order progressed but little. Amenhotep IV left the work in the hands of competent teachers, and as the years passed by, a few were admitted and initiated while the great teachings were being transcribed in symbolism and a special secret alphabet. There being no male descendants of Amenhotep IV, he was succeeded by his sons-in-law as pharaoh. And at the close of the 18th dynasty, the religion of Amun had been established once again, while the dreams and hopes of our master were confined to the order and its succession of teachers. During the 19th dynasty under Seti I and Ramses II, considerable tolerance was granted to the order in Egypt, but gradually a feeling arose against its secret power, and the lines of activity had to be drawn closer and closer. Fortunately, in the order at the time of the transition of Amenhotep IV was a sage named Hermes. So great was his learning and yet so mystical his many writings, purposely veiled so that they might be of value only to the future initiates, that the uninitiated minds of future years arose and acclaimed Hermes a myth. And there are those today who try to establish his identity with that of the Egyptian god Thoth. However, it's the author's pleasure to state now that which has never appeared in print before and which has perplexed investigators for centuries. The birthday of Hermes, the thrice great man, He was born in Thebes, October the 9th, 1399 BC. He lived to the age of 152, dying in the Rosaecrucian monastery at El-Armana on March the 22nd, 1247 BC, and his mummy lies among others in a cachette in vicinity of El-Armana. He was thrice great because he lived to attend the installation of Amenhotep IV as an R.C. master, became master himself upon the latter's transition, and in 1249 installed one Anaximander as master of the order. It was at this time that Hermes completed his writings, especially the 7 books and tablets, which were found and brought to light in 400 AD, and which were upon diverse chemical and physical subjects. In 1203, several of the brothers of the order who were of the Illuminati were commissioned to go into other lands and spread the secret doctrines by the establishment of other lodges. It was quite apparent that Egypt was to be subjugated to a devastation and that its great learning might be lost. Confidence seems to have been the keynote. However, for one may read a long argument reminding one of a speech in Congress delivered by one of the brothers at a council held in El-Armana on June 8, 1202 BC, in which he reassures all present that the stars shone not but trial and test by air, fire, and water, which we hold to be the elements of the crucible form, which the precious stone will bring forth its own. And again, who among us will rise and predict defeat? For that for which our masters have labored over 29 cycles, or 200 years. Is not this truth? Are we not assembled in truth? Are we not living truth? And can truth die? Is not transition the gateway of progress? And can the crucible do more than bring about a physical and spiritual transition, a transmutation of the principles for which we have pledged our lives? It was finally decided that no undue haste should be sanctioned in permitting the brothers who had gone abroad to establish lodges, but rather that those who travel here in search of light should be tried, and to those found qualified will be given the commission to return to their people and establish a lodge in the name of the order. It was this dictum, known as the A.M.O.R.C, that in later years proved the wisdom of the counselors at this meeting, for it not only became a hard and fast rule, but made for the success of the plans of propagation. It was in this wise that the phrase travel east for learning or light first came into use, for those who soon began to travel to Egypt came from the west. About the year 1000 BC, there came to Egypt a character whose name is recorded as Solomon, but who is identified in later years with Solomon. The records show that he had come from the west. He had traveled over many lands and across waters. He was of a nation which was large and important, situated in some very distant place. All this is indicated from the report he made to the representative of the order, whom he interviewed at Thebes, whither he had gone immediately upon his arrival in Egypt, accompanied by his slaves and his Naja, a word unknown to the translators. He desired instruction in the higher Egyptian sciences and philosophy, and was directed to El-Armana with a letter of introduction from the intendant at Thebes. He reached El-Armana on the 4th day of June, 999 BC, and after an examination was admitted into the order on June 12, 999, under the name Solomon, the youthful seeker. The age of Solomon, or Solomon, is one of the much muted points in this incident, and has no importance except as a matter of historical record. Foner, the historian of the Rosaecrucian Grand Lodge in France in the years 1132 to 1134, wrote, "Since there is no record that an age limit was established for initiated at El-Amarna, we can only suppose that the Egyptian customs or laws regarding the age for marriage and title applied in this case also. 12 was the usual age for males to claim individuality, and our master Amenhotep IV was but 11 when he was crowned. Therefore, it is possible that the unusual title, the youthful seeker, referred to a more tender age than that of the most youthful of the brothers. Certainly there were those in the order under the age of 18. For we read of one brother in the third examination who was barely 19, and he must have been initiated not less than 1 year earlier. Furthermore, the long period of preliminary examination from June the 4th to 12th before being admitted would indicate a period of qualification of mind referred to in other papers, and this might easily be due to his youth. After many deductions, Foner concluded that Solomon must have been born about 1015 to 1017 BC. This conclusion has been generally accepted by all Rosicrucian lodges. Solomon did not complete his study, for it is reported that he left El-Amarna before the fourth examination. Was this prior to passing into what is now known as the fourth degree? He left upon his brothers and sisters a definite feeling of love, wisdom, and virtue, and all were grieving at his sudden but announced departure. The next word of him is as a resident at the royal home in Bubastis in the Delta, where Shizak I, or Shishonk, had established himself. This was in the year 952, and Solomon is referred to as an instructor to the Pharaoh's son. This is probably a mistake in translating, for in another place he is referred to as an advisor in political matters, and this seems more probable in the light of future developments. Whether he had been at this residence all the intervening years from 999 to 952 BC is not definitely established, but there is a record of his presence at Thebes in the year 980 when he visited some games in the company with the intendant of Thebes and a group of scholars with whom he seemed on the most intimate terms. Solomon seems to have been greatly influenced in Thebes and Bubastis by the religion of Ammon, and conceived a form of philosophical religion which was a mixture of Rosaecrucian monotheism and the Egyptian idolatry. To him, the sun became more than the mere symbol of God. It was the living, vital spirit of God. And while not the God, it was the ethereal body. This would indicate that Solomon conceived God as being A, personal rather than impersonal, as Rosicrucianism taught, and B, dual, body and spirit, Father and Holy Ghost. Shizak I secured Thebes in 1951 BC and appointed his son priest in the religion of Ammon, and gave his daughter A to Solomon to wed. This was the first mention of any of Solomon's wives, and she may have been his first wife. At the close of 951 or early in 950, Solomon departed for Palestine, where he became a mighty power, and with a prearranged plan, permitted Shizak I to rule over his people. The history of Solomon or Solomon in Palestine is too well known to warrant any further comment except on one point. 5 years after Solomon began his rule in Palestine, or about 945 BC, he completed a temple there in which to house a society or brotherhood such as he had found at El-Amarna. An examination of the plans and cross-section views of the so-called Solomon's Temple shows it to be not only typically Egyptian in architecture and decoration, but copied after the A.M.O.R.C's temple at El-Amarna, even to the location of the altar, with the exception that the side structures which made the original building a cross were eliminated in Solomon's plans. Solomon had the assistance of two who had traveled in Egypt as architects and artists, Huram Abai of Tyre and one Hiram Abith. The brotherhood was closely watched by the Rosaecrucian order in Egypt, which had removed its headquarters to Thebes, again because of political changes and the warring invasions in the territory of El-Amarna, which evidently reduced the entire community to ruins. The A.M.O.R.C temple in Thebes was at the edge of the desert at the foot of the western hills. It was found that Solomon restricted his order to males and adapted a great many of the details of the Rosaecrucian initiations and services. At first it was believed that he would apply to the Great Lodge in Thebes for a charter and make his work a branch of the A.M.O.R.C. But it became apparent before the first assembly was held that he was not adhering to the Rosaecrucian philosophy, for he used the sun as the exclusive symbol of his order. Of the growth of the Solomon Brotherhood, as it was officially called in ancient Rosaecrucian documents, one may read in all literature bearing upon Freemasonry how it has evolved into a semi-mystical, speculative, secret, fraternal order of power and great honor, gradually altering the principles laid down by Solomon. It is true, but doing so for the greater benefit of man and the glory of the true God. Thus did Rosaecrucianism in its pure form fail to reach Palestine at this epoch. But the Greeks were now coming to Thebes to study, and it is at this time that the worldwide spread of the A.M.O.R.C. began. Pythagoras, so often mentioned as one of the earliest messiahs of the order, but in truth there were many who preceded him. Among the first to become worldly famous in the order was Solon, who became the first chaplain in a Rosaecrucian temple who was not an Egyptian. He entered the order in 618 BC and remained a true messiah until his transition in 550, leaving for our use some of the most beautiful and inspiring prayers ever spoken by a yearning spirit. Contemporary with him was Anaximander, who came from Miletus to study at Thebes. From Miletus also came Anaximenes. Then came Heraclitus, who was the last of the foreign messiahs at Thebes, preceding the coming of Pythagoras. Pythagoras was born in Samos on November 26, 582 BC. He entered the order at Thebes on the 2nd of April 531, and having passed through all the initiations and examinations, he entered the Illuminati October 16, 529, and left at once for Cortona, Italy, with jewels and documents to found a Grand Lodge there. There were a few so-called secret cults in existence at that time in Italy, but when Pythagoras began to promulgate his plans and admitted that women might not only become members but could hold offices, he attracted the attention of the most advanced thinkers of the day. Theano, the wife of Pythagoras, was one of the principal officers for 3 years. The Grand Lodge eventually had 300 brothers and sisters and issued many charters for local lodges of the order throughout Italy. Pythagoras was forced to change the location of his temple because of political conditions, and he moved it to Ragon. But this was of no avail, and the annals of the A.M.O.R.C history record no sadder event than the political assassination of Pythagoras. For in 500 BC, his entire temple was burned and destroyed, while a service was being conducted and the great master's body was found on the altar holding to his lips the Rosae Crucis. The order continued in secrecy, however, and flourished again the next century in Taurus. From this time onward towards the Christian period, great minds from many countries journeyed eastward and crossed the threshold, and having completed the work and studies, passed again out into the world's darkness to spread the light as they interpreted it. Among the earliest of these official and chartered branch lodges of the order, conducted by graduates of the Rosaecrucian College, were those located in Thyatira and Athens, Greece. As a historical record and a guide to the student who delights in research and antiquarianism, there will be given the names of those who came to Thebes to study, become masters of Rosaecrucian lodges in other lands, and during their lifetime published at least one book, an official work, treating on the Rosaecrucian philosophies or sciences. Many of the books or manuscripts to be listed are still extant in the original or translated, and quite a few are in America. A perusal of any of them convinced one of the author's real knowledge and experience in Rosaecrucianism. The next installment of this history will contain the list of books and manuscripts referred to and will bring the historical record up to modern times. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and comment. And if you can, please consider donating a little to Wars of the Roses. Links to PayPal and Patreon are in the description. Thank you very much.